Thank you, Rishabh. And so we part of Epic Consulting, Uma and I. So we have a small business in Bangalore. I have a basic degree in mechanical engineering, and then did my MBA. So have a little bit of accounting background. And then I did a lot of Sarbanes-Oxley implementations, internal controls, segregation of duties, and all those kind of things. So what I have right now is I believe, my customers differ about that, the perfect cusp of these three interfaces, mechanical engineering, accounting, and then, internal controls. Um, because of my mechanical engineering background, one of the things that I have been focusing on is about um, the manufacturing sector, and I have about 7 to 8 implementations in this particular sector. So what I do want to talk about is that there are a couple of things on the manufacturing module. I don't know. Before I begin, how many of you guys have tried out the manufacturing module? Yeah, that's a whole bunch. So hopefully some of what I say, if not all, will resonate with what you think about the manufacturing module. But before I start getting too critical about the manufacturing module, I just want to say that ERPNext is the best thing that happened to Epic and to small medium businesses. It's without doubt in that particular thing. We at Epic have staked our entire future in ERPNext. I don't do anything else. I just took off, like Tony was talking about being, partner agnostic. No, we don't want to do partner agnostic because it took me about 6 months to figure out ERPNext. It's very easy, great to use, but there are things that you do, in a sales invoice that if you don't manage that well, will hit a wrong part of your chart of accounts. So all of that is a whole journey. So we really don't want to, look at anything else. If somebody wants SAP, oh, there are so many providers, go talk to them. We only do ERPNext. However, I'm sure when you tried ERPNext, all of you, you saw the workstation feature and you saw the operation feature and you got super excited. You said, wow, this is exactly what I need. Now suddenly my raw materials will all go through WIP, through the various workstations and operations, and then it'll magically appear in the finished goods warehouse and I'll be able to sell that particular thing. Isn't that something like what each of you expected when you saw that? And then you figured out that all it did was that it loaded up the theoretical cost of that particular product onto that, right? So when I was thinking that what can we do to enhance, we as an Epic and the community, do to enhance the manufacturing module, I went back to that initial thought. Yeah, you already have the workstation and the operation functionality. What if you were able to route all the products that you make from the raw material through subcontract to WIP in your finished good warehouse through the same workflow you've already defined? So all you need to do is to weave a workflow around this particular thing. So before I get on to the, talking about the manufacturing module, a little bit of, my experiences, my excruciating experiences. And if it's excruciating for me, you should just imagine the order of magnitude of pain it was for my customers, but they were very nice to, give me the opportunity. Getting things right requires quarters, if not years. You can't, just go on the like Tony was talking about the agile model and then hope everything will fall in place. No, once you do the agile model, you'll have to go look at all the various problems that has happened, and then you'll have to clean that particular thing up. And that cleaning up requires quarters, if not years of effort. And I am talking about really complicated, implementations. All my customers are like, huge manufacturing organizations. Most of them, like, Dominic was talking about, has got like, about 150, 160 components as part of their finished goods. Dominic makes things that you can hold in your hand. Most of my customers make things that are like 25 tons, 30 tons, in terms of this thing. When you make things that big and that heavy, You don't have a traditional warehouse. You have a yard where you go and you pick up things and you work on them and then you put it back into the yard. And there is nobody who's going to make an entry in the ERP system. So a traditional warehouse is your yard, and there is no storekeeper to the yard, right? So an ERP system is not a magic wand. When you go talk to people, you say, "Oh, I'm getting an ERP system." Well, sir, you may long for the blissfully ignorant days when you had no clue about what was going on, because now suddenly you are forced to see problems. And most entrepreneurs, and I see all of you entrepreneurs coming on here, are all type A personalities. If they see a problem, they will not sleep till they find a solution for that particular thing, right? So the ERP system is actually going to mess you up before you're able to sleep well again. But just remember that you had those problems. You just had no visibility about those particular problems. So if you're losing sleep for the right reasons, because obviously there's something wrong in your organization. One of the things, and Tony had a great points about the implementation part of it, but one of my things that I have realized, and I recommend to all my clients, is to hire a production planning control for complex manufacturing, of course. Person who goes through the whole implementation process. He or she, I apologize, is my eyes and ears into that particular organization, and that organization's eyes and ears into my organization. It makes the interface between these two organizations a lot better, and that person manages the continuity after I disengage from that particular project. Approach your implementation in a phased manner. So if you were to really look at the kind of organizations I work with, they're all very mature organizations. So as Tony's model, they fit onto the waterfall kind of the thing. And that's what's worked for me best. Your shop floor can only manage so much change. I think you spoke about that particular thing. Where if you pile on too much change onto the organization, it just breaks. And getting the darn product out of the door will trump any pesky requirements of any ERP system. And this is not the shop floor people. This is the owner of the company saying, get the darn product out of the door. We'll worry about the ERP system a little later, right? So that is the background. So what I am recommending, and please take into account the yard concept where things are just lying out there. There's nobody to see if you used it, what stage it is that it is at, and all those kind of things. So the phases that I suggest to companies, a lot of this is experience. So I have to implement some of these things that that I have that I'm putting out here. The first one is backflush raw material. Don't kind of think about like going to find out, oh, how many WIP material do we have? How many, of course, once it goes to a subcontractor, you should know. But as long as it's in that yard of yours, don't get too worried about whether it's in stage 1 or stage 2 or stage 3. When this drops into your finished goods warehouse, just backflush the raw material using the bill of materials, right? So what do you get out of that particular thing? You get raw material, consumption at the product level. Most of the companies, that blissfully ignorant, approach where your consumption of raw materials is equal to opening stock plus purchases minus closing stock. And you're looking at it at the overall company level. Are you making money on product A? Are you losing money on product B? You ask the owner saying, I think I'm making money in product A. But it really could be any guess because he really doesn't know. Not that he doesn't want to know, it's just that things are so complicated and that there's so many moving parts on that particular thing. What you don't get is a correct indication. You know that you have 100 of these components within your organization. How much of that is sitting in your stores? How much of that is sitting out in the yard? How much of that is in WIP? And how much of that is, finished goods you will, because then you will backflush that whole thing. But you won't know. And don't worry about it, because you're not getting that information right now anyway. So don't expect this ERP system to be a magic wand that will tell you everything you want to know about every part of your business, right? So what to watch out for? Missing out backflushing. So when you have multi-stage manufacturing, you have a component, you have a sub-assembly, you have a main assembly, and then you have like a super main assembly, and then you make the product. Then you got to be very clear about what kind of bill of materials you're using. Just the multi-level bill, the multi-level BOM doesn't work. The multi-level BOM works at only 1 or 2 stages. It either is the direct main assemblies or it gives you the raw material. It doesn't give me the second stage of the bill of materials, so third stage of the bill of materials when you have this tiered bill of materials. So what you got to do is you got to be a little careful about having those bills of materials and nomenclaturing those bills of materials. So what I typically do is I have 2 bills of materials, one for manufacture and another for materials planning. You need to know what are the materials you need before you start manufacture of a particular product. But at the time of manufacture, if you use the same bill of materials to backflush, when you've already backflushed a sub-assembly, then you're consuming the raw materials twice. And while you're actually making money on that particular product, you think you're losing money because you've used up the raw material twice. The second part, once you have gained a certain amount of detail into your business at the product level, is to go into warehouse control. Now, again, the kind of companies that I work with is like yards. There is nobody to really control usage of raw material or usage of WIP material. So what you do is you reward people for making ERP entries. That is the first phase 2A, if you don't mind, right? And in 2B, you start penalizing people if they don't make entries. So it's all out there in the yard. You can go pick it up whenever you want to, but as soon as you picked up, at the end of the day, come in and make that entry on the ERP system so that now you know that this particular material is sitting in stage 3 or stage 4. Why would you want to do warehouse control in phase 1? There's only so much change your people can take. They have been used to going out to the yard, picking up material, not, making any entries and all that kind of stuff. And suddenly you're saying, no, you got to make an entry as well and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't work. So getting the ERP system on and, getting it, showing the benefits and saying, look, now you know your consumption. You don't have to do a physical stock verification every 3 months to know what your consumption is. Itself is a big win for organizations. Right? So what do you get out of that? The physical stock and physical stock, the ERP stock and the physical stock synchronize. You don't have to do the physical stock verification. The only thing that you have doubts on is the extraordinary consumption of raw material. Somebody, screwed up. They welded a piece the wrong way. And they just go to the yard and pick up another piece of raw material. And suddenly you think, wow, why did I use up more raw material? And you investigate into that and you find out that it was bad quality. So for a while, you will actually continue doing the physical stock verification as well. And then these kind of extraordinary events, you will be able to figure out and you'll be able to take corrective action of that. But if the nature of your business is so complex that these extraordinary events keep occurring every time, then obviously you have to update your bill of materials because that is what your organization is, can deliver. So what you don't get is the total direct cost of making the product. Like you have tools, you have utilities, you have labor and all those kind of things. So you only get the total cost of making the total raw material cost of making that particular product. And again here, expect that it will work only imperfectly. Don't expect perfection at this particular stage. But be very sure that you will try and identify those imperfections and reduce those imperfections till you'll never get to a perfect world, till you get to the law of diminishing returns, where any more effort will not make you any more perfect. So you just stop there and you move on to the next one. The third part, and I just want to say that I was like really whining about the manufacturing module, about the ERPNext, but no. Backflush and warehouse control, the existing manufacturing module will serve wonderfully well. And for all my clients, doing phase A and phase B takes me anywhere from 6 to 18 months to get through, as part of that particular process. So in some of those clients, I'm coming to the interplay, kind of this thing in there. So this particular stage, you have to use the theory of constraints to figure out what is the bottleneck in your organization, right? So what is, okay, how much money you're making on each product, how much money you're losing on each particular product. Is the labor cost component so important for you to figure out, profitability? If the answer is yes, then you need to get into the labor component. If the labor component is like 2% of your total cost, in India, sometimes it is 2% of your total cost, and you're making like 20% margins, you maybe don't need to worry about, labor. Capacity management, various things. So for the interplay part of it, ERPNext will need to evolve. The manufacturing module will need to evolve to, take care of this particular thing. Now, look at making a simple thing like coffee. There are a whole bunch of variables. You need tools, which is that spoon. You have the operator, to turn on the machine. You have raw material, which is the coffee beans or the coffee powder, and you have consumables, which is that filter. The filter is the consumable, and you have the machine itself, the coffee maker, and you use utilities, water and power, correct? And you get byproducts, which is the used coffee beans and the used filter. But you can't just take those ingredients. So what the BOM does, the bill of materials, the message that I want to say is that the bill of materials is just the ingredients. There is a process of churning out your finished product using those ingredients. And that is the recipe that your organization uses. And that recipe could be a simple recipe, it could be a complicated recipe, right? I mean, I'm not trying to teach you how to make coffee. I was just use that for illustration purposes. So, and in the 7 or 8 implementations that I've done, it's all in a different, industry. It's a different sector. Not so simple manufacturing. Keep track of WIP material. Figure out the availability of WIP material before manufacturing. So don't double order raw materials. Use the ones that are out in the yard. So that is the biggest, and I think Dominic was talking about traceability. Traceability is incredibly important for some of the organizations. Pharmaceutical formulations, the healthcare industry. You need to know everything, and that everything is not just the batch and the serial number of the raw materials that you consume. Of course, you need to do that. In addition to that, your whole process. Did that furnace turn off at 130 degrees centigrade? What was the humidity? You need to record all of that, and you need to keep records of all of that for regulatory purposes, statutory purposes, and all those kind of things. Now, you look at exotic metals. Why did I put that byproducts, the used coffee bean, the used coffee grounds, and the used filter? Now, if you're doing exotic metals, you melt gold and silver, what you can recover from those byproducts is probably, the definition is the difference between profitability and ruin for your organization. So some of my customers need to recover, money from the byproducts that they generate. Otherwise, they don't make any money out of that particular thing. Mechanical component manufacturing, they need to do scheduling. They need to know how to manufacture, what do I prioritize? Is it customer requirements? Is it profitability? Is it availability of raw material? Or is it a combination of all of these particular things, right? You look at textile industry, there is variability. The amount of raw material it consumes depends on the humidity, depends on the operator, it depends on the machine that you're running. There is no constant. So a constant static bill of materials just doesn't cut it for, for those people. The mattress manufacturer, getting the cost of manufacturing to the product level and managing BOMs. So they have the same mattress in 6 inches, 8 inches, coir, rubber. Then they have like spring, and they have like, 1,600 BOMs. How do you manage those particular BOMs? How do you ensure that the operator can pull the right BOM and use that BOM while back flushing material? So that is important. So I really have thought a lot of manufacturing, but then I got caught up in, with my own thoughts. And one of the things that I have a problem. If I think too much about a particular problem, I get so caught up with my own idea that, it becomes very difficult for people to work with me after that. I say, no, we got to do it this way and all that kind of stuff. So I said, I'll stop. I'll come here at the, conference, and there are so many brilliant people out here, so many capable people out here. Present some of the things that I said, and I want to really, spend a little bit of energy, and on enhancing the manufacturing module. And this is the approach that I want to suggest. Let's form a smaller user group, people who want to focus on the manufacturing module. Define the parameters of the manufacturing module. If you look at the previous screen, the only reason I put up the previous screen was like, if you have 1,000 features, your customers will use only 20 of them. And, it was that, armor example that you gave, but it'll be a different 20 for each of these particular customers. So if you don't have the 1,000 features, it's not going to cut it. If you just have 20, it'll just cut it for one small sector. So what we need to do is we need to probably look at a broad this thing and then prioritize that whole approach, right? And, I don't know if anybody is going to disagree on this particular thing. I think one of the things that we need to do is either leverage other open source tools that are available directly or get inspired by them, depending on how open they really are, right? So for instance, there's FREPL, for production planning control. It's open source, it's out there. And then there is this open maintenance for, plant and asset maintenance, because there's a whole bunch of things that you need to do when you have big machines. I'm sure Dominic, most of his, a lot of his energies or his team's energies is to ensure that the machines work consistently, predictably. And for that, you need a whole maintenance schedule. You need to do a whole bunch of things. And I don't think as a community, we can say, oh, why don't you use something else for, that particular part, which is great. They will do that anyway. But the sooner we integrate all of it together, the more compelling ERPNext is going to be for, any organization. And, I think there is going to be a presentation where people are going to talk about taking this to the enterprise, and the enterprise will need all of these particular features anyway. Scope out effort and budgets. So there will be, time, there will be money, and, all those kind of requirements. And this smaller group who, we'll figure out how to form this group, how to, what are the rules of engagement of this particular group. We will get back to the community at large for suggestions, which obviously we need, because, we don't want to get blindsided by groupthink within this, smaller community. And then we may get back, to people for budgets, for help. You can either contribute, money, or you can contribute effort, you can contribute time, whatever you want. And, so that is, that is my, I'm sorry, that is the presentation that I had. And the only thing I want to say is like, thank you very much, Rishabh. This was like awesome. I was part of the corporate network. So, what Andy was talking about was, absolutely spot on. I thought there was a better way, not just for the companies, for myself as well, how to make my money, how to make my living. And I absolutely love it. Thank you very much for enabling me and my organization in this particular.